Hello, everyone. Hey, Rick, Christina, Claudia, Jacob, welcome, Monique, Tom. Hey, Jack, welcome. Welcome, Stuffy. Hey, Amy, welcome. Welcome, Eric. Oh, Eric, that's a great background. Hello, Jasmine. Welcome, Liz, Maggie, Emma. Good morning. Anna, you're here. I thought you were going to be traveling.
I'm on the train.
Oh, that's devotion for you. You look great. I love your hair.
Love yours.
Thanks. All right, we're gonna give it one more minute as people start coming in. Welcome, Christina, Lori and Glenn. Brian, welcome. Hey, Christina, good to see you. It's always such a treat to see you guys. I just love it.
And it's a treat to be here.
Thank you. All right. Is Ken with you, Anna? No, we're losing you a little bit. That's okay. I figured that since you're on the train. I was just wondering if Ken was with you. Hey, Matthew, welcome.
I didn't answer you. No.
Oh, okay. All right. So, welcome everyone. And today we celebrate another year of race literacy trainings, these race literacy lunch and learns, which were started June 1st, 2020, after the murder of George Floyd by Derek Chauvin. And they were started to help people understand trauma and move through that trauma, which obviously was very difficult for everyone who witnessed that, which was pretty much the whole world. And I remember that first lunch and learn, we had people from Mexico and Australia and the UK and people from all over the world who were not just traumatized, but were also grieving around what they had just seen. And so as you know, I did those programs for a year and a half every week, every Monday. And then this year we switched over to once a month and started inviting organizations to join us on this journey so that I've been doing diversity work in organizations, it seems like since I was born. And but the thing about that work, though, is that, most organizations will do one training, and then they'll do another one 6 months later, and they'll do a different one 3 months later. So there's no continuity and no consistency. The truth about this topic, this very toxic topic, is that it doesn't go away. And it's 600 years of conditioning that we carry in our bodies. And that conditioning is, it shows up in our relationships with people at work. It shows up in our expectations. It shows up in our conversations. It shows up even in the way that we look at people. And so how do we have a way of having these conversations and continuing to learn on a regular basis so that we start to peel away the layers of literally hundreds of years of conditioning that we carry in our bones? And so that's what this program is really about. That's what it's been about. My intention as I age gracefully is to continue to do the program as long as people are interested in showing up. I will be here to do this program, and every month rather, I'm committed to doing a different program. Like, for instance, in January, we're going to start the year by talking about race and housing, which is a huge topic. And I've done it before, but every time I do it differently. I bring in different ideas and different thoughts and all kinds of things. So I'm just thrilled to have all of you here. I'm excited for our conversation today. I'm not training today. Today, it's going to be about, what this program has meant to you, if anything, what you've learned in the past, however long you've been coming. If you would like to see this program continue, anything you want to say about Race Literacy Lunch and Learn. It's an hour a month. A lot of us, I always stay an extra few minutes. Sometimes we run over because this topic is so full that an hour is, I know an hour is a stretch for some organizations, but the commitment has to be there. We can't just keep talking about equity in organizations and putting it up on our websites and doing all those kinds of wonderful things, although that's a good thing to do. But it really takes commitment and an awareness of the things that we do well and the things that we don't do so well, where our knowledge is and where we lack knowledge and understanding. And I continue to do the program differently every month that we get together, because people don't know what they don't know. And gaining that deeper understanding helps us to look at things differently, speak about things differently, and do things differently, which is where the change really takes place. So y'all know how this goes. You open up your mic and you start talking. And I want to hear from you, what this program has meant to you. A lot of you keep coming back month after month, which I really love and appreciate that commitment that you have to doing things differently. And so I want to hear from you.
I will speak up, Milagros.
Hey, Rick, thank you.
I've been attending these since they began, or maybe after. They were prompted by the firm that I no longer work for, but I'm continuing to listen and chime in. And I have a question for you. I mean, racism has been going on for hundreds of years across many avenues. And I appreciate you wanting to continue this, because the question is, how long, I guess, do you expect it to be unraveled, or will it ever be unraveled? Is this a constant process?
Yeah. So here's the thing. Racism is institutional, systemic, internalized, personal, and interpersonal, right? The reality is that there are so each one of those is a layer and a place where work needs to be done. The truth is that a lot of the people that could be, should be, would be, might be doing this program, or I don't mean, when I say this program, I don't mean like necessarily my program, but doing the healing work, the transformation work around this stuff, are not necessarily showing up to do that work, right? In fact, some don't want to do it at all because they kind of like things the way they are because it serves them, right? And then there are those who don't even know that healing and transformation is needed. And then there are those who know that it's needed, but they're too lazy to do the work. And then there, so I could go on and on and on, right? But there's a wonderful line in the Course in Miracles that says, in a relationship, whichever is saner of the two needs to take responsibility for the relationship, okay? And so one of the things that I hear a lot in this work is, oh, you're speaking to the choir. And it's like, yeah, because the choir showed up, right? And so my responsibility is to impart what I know, and I do that. The responsibility of those attending who have the aunts and the uncles who make the racist comments, who have the parents and grandparents, or who have the friends, who have their drinking buddies, who, it's your responsibility to bring them to programs like this and begin to open them up to the reality that there is a different world that can be accessed. So, the work is something that, it's not like y'all come be a shaman in a weekend. It's not that kind of, this is a continuing peeling away of our layers of learned dysfunction around this stuff. Because the truth is that we are, no matter what has happened, we're still just one human family. That's it. We're all related, right? And without conscious awareness of the things that we are doing that are hurting other people, some people do it consciously and choose to do it, but a lot of people just are acting out of the conditioning without realizing that there's something wrong with this picture, A lot of people are busy blaming others for things that they should be taking responsibility for. So this stuff is very complex, and it's not something that we can do in just one training or one this or one that. That's why I do the 2-day training. It takes people 45 days to move through all of that information, but it begins to peel away at the layers. So I guess the very long answer to your question is, we need to continue to do the work. This is kind of like personal growth work. It's kind of unending. Personal growth work is unending. It's, we're always discovering and uncovering things about ourselves, things we learned from our family of origin, things that we didn't know about the world, that it's like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? We need to explore the places where we are naive, the places where we believe in magic, it's sort of like, oh, it'll just take care of itself. I don't have to do anything, And so it's a constant and continual learning. The thing about racism is that we were badly taught, okay? We just were. We're very good learners. We're very, very good, but we have been badly taught around the subject that is so important to our humanity. And so, so the work continues. I'm committed to keep going.
That's what I figured you would say. I just wanted it acknowledged among this group, though. In this TikTok society, everyone assumes that things are just going to need to be fixed right now. Mm-hmm. And no, this is a long, long process by which this gets unraveled and progress is made. So
thank you. Yeah.
So maybe related to that, or an analogy perhaps, is to this. For years, I wanted to learn how to dance salsa, and so I spent,
yes,
like, you want to
I hear you, Miguel.
Right? So I want to do this thing, but you spend years and years like, I want to do it. I want to become, a better dancer, but you don't go to the classes. So you're not going to miraculously become a salsa dancer without actually learning.
Yeah.
So then you're like, okay, finally, I'm going to go do this thing. So you go to a class, and you're like, oh, that's really fun. Then you realize, you know what? If I'm actually going to get good at salsa, I need to practice between my classes.
Yes.
And then you're like, you know what? Actually, when you look at the people who really know how to salsa, they dance and they are always getting better.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if there's necessarily an analogy to this kind of work, but the sense that like you can go to classes, but then you have to practice outside.
Yeah.
And you're gonna, to the degree that there may not be, like sort of some final like, or now you've achieved it. You are now, you've achieved enlightenment or something. No, you're always practicing salsa. You're always practicing awareness and connection and those kinds of things. So when you asked that question, Rick, and what you responded, Milagros, that analogy, that's what I thought.
Well, I love that analogy because I'm a salsa dancer, and you're right. You just never stop. You're constantly, it's like, oh, I did that twirl, then I put my leg out this way. It's a continual thing. And the thing about the practicing in between times is, particularly with this work, is what's happening to you at work, at home, in your community. What are you seeing that you didn't see before? How are you hearing things that you may not have heard them in quite this way before? But because you're in this continual practice, it makes a big difference. The other thing I want to say very quickly about Miguel's analogy is that salsa is always better with a partner. You really get to twirl around a whole lot better with a partner. And so you test it out better with a partner. And this work is the same thing. It's the, bringing friends, bringing family, and, and some of them are going to be resistant. This is just sort of like, just sit here with me and listen, right? Because it's so much better when we do it together, right? And so, yeah, so I just absolutely love that. Thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah. Go for it, Steffi.
Well, I was thinking about your comment about 600 years of conditioning and about how we've been badly taught. And, it reminds me of when we have some bad habits that, things that we're a little bit unconscious of, but that we do. And it takes practice and it takes reminders sometimes to relearn things, even things that we didn't mean to learn in the first place. And so having kind of this regular discussion means that we have an opportunity to have almost a regular reminder, a regular reconditioning, a regular way to kind of retune our habits so that, for the next month, if we come across situations, we don't fall back into our old habits. Sort of like practicing between our classes.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And that's perfect because that's it, right? And if you have partners that are walking the path with you, then you can go, oh my gosh, I just saw this or I heard that. And so you begin to do this like peer conditioning or deconditioning, right? Because the person you're speaking with now all of a sudden has a new experience to add to their repertoire, how you acted, reacted, what you felt in your body, how your heart felt like, oh my gosh, or how you were startled by somebody's reaction, or, all of those kinds of things, and you start to share them. The other thing about that is that peer deconditioning is so powerful because what it does is it lets you know you're not alone. You have somebody that you're walking the path with. I found that in the organizations where I feel that I've made the greatest impact have been organizations where, one, the leadership got involved in this work and were committed to this work. So they showed up, because in a lot of organizations, what often happens is that y'all go, we'll pay for you, we'll throw some money at it, right? And it's like, well, no, everybody needs to go because we've all been conditioned by the same dysfunction. And, there's no one better or worse or like we've all been conditioned. We've absorbed it differently, as we've talked about in this workshops, but but it's still affecting everyone. And so, you know, being a leader that shows up makes a difference in your organization. It sends a very specific message to your organization about, we genuinely care about this. And then it starts to make a difference in your own creativity, like the way that I'll never forget this. I had someone who I have a program that I used to do years ago, and it was the 8 stages of healing, which, if you've read my book, is now 13 stages, right? Because I went deeper and divided it more so that it would be easier for people to understand it. But he went to my 2-day seminar, and the follow-up was this 8-week program. And he did the 8-week program. He's in real estate, and he sent me months later this beautiful drawing of a project that they were working. They were putting up all these buildings in New York, and he said in the note, "Here is how your work has informed my work." I was just so touched by that, because what he realized was that they needed, because he understood axiology, right? These particular buildings were going up in a predominantly Black community. And he realized we can't build the way we had been building. It's really important that we have these spaces, right? For where people can commune and they can gather and that kind of thing, because that's important to that community. And so he got it, you know? And so that's what this is. As you start to peel away the layers, you begin to see your work in a different way. You show up differently, and you become creative in a different way. So, yeah. Thanks, Steffi. All right. Who else would like to say something? Go for it, Chloe. Hey,
So,
how are you?
hi, doing well. For me, this program has widened or opened my responsibility. What is my responsibility? To assist others in being more open-minded. And the simple words that I use is willing and able, getting people to be willing and able. Because just as we said, sometimes people don't know what they don't know. And what this program has given me is a wider sense and understanding within myself to see the unwillingness or inability, and see sometimes the spectrum that people are moving in. Those that are unable to because of past conditioning, or those that are able but unwilling to. And it shows up in the language and how I am treated or the responses I get from individual. And it's giving me the patience to hear and sit back and not be so quick to say, what the heck? Not be too quick to judge, not be too quick to just walk away, but to sit there, and whether they're in the inability in that conversation or whatever transaction is going on between the two of us, for me to try to move that spectrum in language, in touch, in whatever my responsibility to help that person forward. Because I come across that a lot. Some people are unwilling, and now I can see the unwillingness. You know, but you're unwilling, and that's okay. I need to know that so that I know how to navigate with you or away from you. Or people that are willing but need assistance in continuing this race relation thing that is going on. And I am so appreciative of this. My only downfall is that I'm retired now. So that now I can't really, I'm looking back at the years that I worked for the state of New York and the state of Maryland, and then I can see why certain things went certain ways. But now that I'm retired, that would have been a great opportunity when I was working for New York State or Maryland State. But I am so appreciative to be part of this Lunch and Learn, because I am learning And that learning is allowing me, as many of us are, is allowing me to have patience and sit back and listen and then know how to help that other individual if I see that they want to be helped. And if not, how I move away gracefully so that maybe they'll see my absence as a way of thought and think, I can leave them with this thing that they have to deal with in terms of moving forward with Ray's relationship.
Thank you. Yeah,
Thank you.
I love that. That's great, because what that is also, Claudia, is that's self-care. Is a different way of creating what I call sacred boundaries, where it's like, that person's crossing my boundaries now. How am I going to self-care without abusing them, right? Because that's the other piece, is the is do no harm, whenever you can. And it's such a fine line. And it's also, that self-care piece. What it does is your body begins to react differently to their reactions to you, if that makes sense. Okay, because so often, and particularly for those of us who are people of color, where we have to be in defense mode because you don't know where it's going to come from, and so sometimes we unconsciously move in the world like this, just trying to survive, to just be in the world as safe as we can possibly be. That takes a toll on your body. It takes a toll on your body. And so the more you can be present with your power, because what you're talking about is having an awareness that your power is intact, regardless of somebody else's reactions to you. And so you can move into that place and be present with that power. Right now, I'm leading a group. We're doing 5 months of digging into that power, because what a lot of this stuff has done is it's rendered us in a lot of different ways powerless. You're not enough. You're not enough to change the world. You're not enough to make a difference. You're just not enough, right? And so we unconsciously act out of that and think that, or act as if we were not enough. So what we're doing is peeling away the layers and finding that, wait a minute, I'm still whole, complete, and able to make a difference within myself so that I can impact the world in a different way and come at the world from a place of love and peace and compassion, as opposed to blame, shame, and make everybody bad. Like that doesn't move the needle forward. That very often will make people pull away, and that's not what we want. What we want is to be able to connect at that deeper level while we self-care, with the awareness that there are always going to be people out there who are not on the same page, who don't know what they don't know, who think that they're absolutely right in their dysfunction, and they can't see it. And so, so being aware of all of those things helps us to self-care. So thank you so much, Claudia. That's great. Yeah. Comments, thoughts, things that that you've learned in the past year, anything that sticks in your mind that you may not have known before and you learned during the Lunch and Learn, and it's sort of like, oh, that kind of makes a difference. So we'd love to hear about that. And anything else? Oh, Karen, you have your hand up. You know me and hands up. Most of the times I miss it. Y'all just open up your mic and start talking.
Oh, I'm gonna piggyback on what Steffi said, piggyback on what Claudia said, and piggyback on just what you just spoke about self-care and going deeper. I think to start off, just what I've gotten from these sessions is the history what happened, 600 years and counting forward. And I can still see the graphic, the little video that you sent of all the ships going from across the Atlantic, starting in the 1400s, I guess, and watching them and knowing that each little dot represented a fleet, and the larger ones were and just seeing that, and realizing that those were all slave ships going over, and then just seeing how many were coming to the U.S. A lot of them in the Caribbean, South America, and stuff, but a lot of them were coming, even up into New England, and so but seeing that, but you gave it to us. It's hard to hear the history, but the way you presented it made it bearable. It's like I came away feeling responsibility, but not blame. I came away feeling motivated, but not out of guilt. It was more out of responsibility and out of respect. And that means a lot. The self-care aspect is huge, and you've taught that. And I guess it was Rick's question in the very beginning, talking about when's it going to end, and it's like what I get from you is it's enough to do my own work if I can be an experience of this healing. And I may not see a lot out there, and I may not see a lot of change, and it won't happen in my lifetime, but it's still you present in such a way that I still want to continue to move forward with an open heart, and especially an open heart to those who are so fearful and so resistant to seeing this equity happen that won't happen in my lifetime. But that's what I have struggled with, because I have felt so much in the past, and it's still there, but it's getting better, of judgment and criticism of, oh my God, it's so awful. But everyone is on this path, on someplace on this path you've taught. And so I'm just grateful. I could talk and talk, but I'm going to stop and let others talk. Thanks. That's all I have.
Thank you, Karen. Yeah, it's continual learning. And that's one of the things that we don't get around this topic, is we don't get the continual learning. It's, sporadic. And what happens is, because it's sporadic, it's easy for us to fall back into our old habits, that this really needs to be something that where we're in community, constantly learning and, advancing the needle, moving the needle forward. Yeah. Thank you.
Ditto for what everyone said. Can anyone hear me?
Yes, Anna, we can hear you.
Okay, because I don't want the whole train to hear me, although that wouldn't be a bad idea. In any case,
we can barely see you, though. We're seeing the top of your head, but that's okay. There you go.
I can't do both.
Okay.
Hold it and do that. In any case, let me think. Well, first of all, it's been a joy. I've been on a ride with you for a while. I want to start crying. And so you've given me so much. You are so big, and you know so much, and you teach. You're the best teacher. And you, oh my God. So obviously whoa, okay. So, well, I just said it all in tears and in laughter. Yeah. And and to address, when will the learning be over? Well, when we die, because as long as you're interested in growing and evolving and learning. It's never over. And so I see this as just an ongoing experience, whether it's through the I'm in that 5-month class along with my dear sister. She's not really my sister; she's my spiritual sister, who just spoke. And actually, when I said it's a joy to be in the class, I realized we're working on joy, and I never put that together. So how cool is that?
You're doing your work.
This work can be, and really, it's true. Is that wild? And so, yeah, I mean, it's the only way to get it is to do it. You can never really understand it in words. It's not, it's too intangible. And it's your own experience. So what I can tell you is going to be different and get the experience, but I can only say that it's a world of information that we all need. Every color, every race, every continent, we all need to learn this information.
I think we lost you for a minute there. You know, I thank you so much for that, Ada. I really appreciate it. This, doing this global work around this is so important. And I just, was that last month? The month before? Might have been October. I did a training for the National Ballet School of Canada. And it was a training for all these different schools around the world. And it was translated in, I don't even know how many languages. But they were very intentional and very specific about what they were doing. They wanted to look at Black racism in ballet, which I thought was, and of course, right up my alley. I mean, you guys know I paint ballerinas, and I wanted to be a ballerina when I was a little girl, and I was told that I couldn't be one because I was Black. And it's so interesting to me because it's in a way sort of like coming full circle with this work. And actually, I was recommended to them because of the work that I did with American Ballet Theater. And one of the things that they said, which really touched my heart, was we've done a lot of, diversity work, throughout the years, but we've never done diversity work with an artist before. And I just thought, because I'll say I'm an artist, but I don't always think of myself like that, And when I sent them the proposal, I put one of my paintings in the front. But it was so transformative for me as a facilitator to come full circle around something that happened when I was 4 years old, And so I think that this work is transformative at so many different levels and in so many different ways. This month, I think I sent you guys this is the first time that I think it's the New York City Ballet has their first Black Clara. In some of the Nutcrackers, the lead child role is known as Clara, in others is known as Marie. So it depends on who's doing it, right? But she's got the role of Marie, and she's, she's a brilliant little child, and the way she speaks about her role as being the first one and realizing the responsibility around that. And all I can think about is she's a little girl. That's a big burden for a little girl to carry. Like, yes, she carries it with pride and all of those, but you know what I'm saying? She's a baby, and she's now carrying this big thing on her shoulders of being the first Black child to have this role, and how, people are just sort of looking at her. and we'll continue to look at her, right? She's under the microscope now, so to speak. But, you know, just that, like, just having to carry the fullness of that, when she should just be dancing. You know what I'm saying? She should just be dancing because she loves it and because she can, you know? So this is why we want to heal and change our world, so that a little girl can just dance and she doesn't have to carry the weight of her quote unquote race on her ballerina shoulders to stand on her tippy toes. Do you know what I mean? Like, think about that. You know, it's huge. It's huge. And I say that not just about her as a ballerina, but about the Black and brown people that we employ in our organizations. You know, you could be sitting in a meeting or something, and something happened in the news last night, and somebody mentions it, and you're the only Black person in that room, and everybody turns to you like you're the answer guy. You know what I mean? Like you know, and so you're carrying this excess weight. Not only are you given very limited amounts of freedom, you know, but then you're also carrying the burden of whatever has been assigned as your race. So, you know, beginning to peel that away and realizing and taking full responsibility for being a whole human being who is a member of the human family, right? That's the work. That's the work. Because we've been indoctrinated into segregation to the level at which it affects the way we do segregation thinking all the time. We segregate our heads from our hearts all the time. Like we've become masters at segregation, and part of the healing is bringing ourselves back into oneness with ourselves, within ourselves. So yeah. Who else?
Well,
I think I'm gonna
Margaret,
yeah, go for it, Ben.
That reminds me of a sermon I heard last Sunday at my church. I go to Trinity Episcopal Cathedral in Portland, and we had a guest preacher talking about children and how children are some people that we can learn from because they are open to wonder and they're okay with being in a situation where they don't fully understand things. They're okay with magic. They're okay with things that they don't fully understand. And at some point, you know, adults maybe, and this is a generalization, but maybe some adults get to a point where they're not open to anything that's beyond their current understanding, right? They sort of achieve a current understanding and then doors locked. If it doesn't fit in this understanding, I'm gonna say that it doesn't exist. I'm gonna maybe even fight against it or reject it, or, you know, just not even be open to it. And it was so funny because I hang out with a group of gay men after church, and we sort of talk about the sermon, and we have a gay brunch group that we go to every week. And I was asking people, what did they think of the sermon? And my friends, there were some older men there, like in their 80s, and they were like, oh, I hated that sermon. He talked to us like we were little kids, and what do we have to learn from kids, you know? And I was just like, there it is right there. There it is right there. Because I was really inspired by it. And I just feel like a lot of this work is, I'm inspired by what we're talking about, just being open to things that are outside of our current understanding and letting that exist in a way that we don't have to have all the answers. We don't have to have a word for it. We don't have to have a system for it. Like, can we just exist in this moment and accept people in their humanity and in their love and be present with people? So that's been something that I've taken from this. And I want to thank you for your contribution and helping us move through these difficult questions and topics. And it's really helped me a lot. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Ben. You know, one of the things that everybody here knows, I have children and raised those children, and it was always a joy. I always wanted to be a parent. Like, I remember being 13 years old and thinking, someday I'm going to be a mom, and my first baby's going to be a little girl, and I'm going to name her Thavma. I mean, like, and the reason I want to name her that is because back then, a lot of families had boys, and they would name the boys after the father. Well, I decided I wanted a juniorette named after me. And so, my name is Miracle, and I used to play soccer, and our coach and teacher was from Greece. And I asked him one day, well, how do you say miracle in Greek? And he said, Thavma. I was like, and in that moment, I knew that whenever I became a mom, I was going to name my daughter Thavma, which means miracle. And so, but for me, I've always said the greatest job I've ever had was being a parent. The most joyful, the most fun. I mean, I still enjoy my children, like I don't care how old they are. But I always used to tell them that I love learning from them, because I used to learn so much from them all the time. It was a continual experience for me, and a wonder. And I always, like this whole thing about learning and being in this continual state of learning is so powerful for all of us. When I was a young person, one of my favorite songs is a Frank Sinatra song called Young at Heart. And I laugh at myself sometimes when I'm walking in the woods, because like yesterday, I had this bluebird fly in front of me, and I was mesmerized. And I have my best friend and I often talk when I'm out for my walks, and she's like, it never ceases to amaze me how every time you look at a bird, it's like you're seeing a bird for the first time, Mill. I was like, yeah, you're right. It is kind of like I'm seeing a bird for the first time. And, I had this was a hawk that stopped and just perched on this tree, and we were like 10 feet away from each other, and I just stood there like, and the same day there was this big turkey vulture that went up to the tippy top of a dry tree. I mean, the whole tree was just a stump, and it was really high up, and it just perched right at the very tip and opened up its wings and opened up its tail feathers. I have pictures. I've never seen anything like it. And I am just mesmerized by nature, like the clouds, like everything. And I realized that I've always been like that. I used to lay down on the ground and look at the clouds and figure out what formation they were. And so there is something about us that is that sacred innocence. And if we can hang on to that is a place that we can go and visit on a regular basis. And what that does is it keeps you healthy. I really believe it keeps you healthy, because there's something about that memory of that wonder that you were just talking about, that like, oh, wow, there's a bird in flight, there's something about that that's never ending. And we all have it. We all have it. It's never gone away, and it never will. You will always have that. You own that. So yeah, thank you for that. Thanks. All right, who's next?
Milagros, I would love to share.
Hey, Christina.
Hi. I want to thank you for this journey that you have taken us on. There's so much that I've appreciated about it. When I think back to all of the months, the balance of historical, contextual information that's more academic, blended with some months that we were talking about current events and what had just happened and how that related to this work, and then how all of those things were blended and balanced, made it feel very personal and applicable. And since church was mentioned, it also, that monthly time to come and connect. For me in church, a lot of times I'm hearing things that I might already know intellectually or that I believe, but that it's really easy to forget in the day-to-day of life. And that, to me, this has been this touchstone to come back to learn a lot of new things, And then also to be reminded or to have things made personal that can go to the periphery in other aspects of life. So I've been so grateful for that. I've been grateful that even when I haven't been able to make the live sessions, when I watch the replay, I feel like I've received just as much value. And I love this blended group from different organizations. I feel like that in and of itself offers a tremendous value in hearing perspectives, thoughts, just meeting new people across organizations and industries and fields. This has truly been a joy, and I'm just so grateful. So thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Christina. Thank you. Yeah, again, you don't necessarily want to go on the journey by yourself. Bring some people with you. So for me, looking to get organizations to join this, and it's so funny because I spent a lot of my youth as a salesperson, because it's one of the few jobs that people like me could get, right? And nowadays it's sort of like, it's not my forte. Okay, it's not my forte. And so from time to time, I think I need to get more organizations to know about this work so that we can have more organizations joining, because the exchange is so transformative and it's so powerful. And it's also that exchange that happens between people who are in different industries, who are doing different work, and talking about the impact of this on what they're doing and how we learn from that. So my goal this upcoming year is to get 10 organizations to join us during 2023, so that we can continue to grow the community and have more people join us. So if you have friends that work at other organizations, if you know someone, please help us spread the word and invite people to the Lunch and Learn, because that's usually the easiest way to get people to join, is to have them attend one of the programs and see if they want to bring it into their organization. So let's do that and see who else we can get to join this journey. If you're in tech, please try to see if you can get some tech folk to join. I mean, those folks seriously need to open up the doors to Black and brown folk, okay? And it's a lot easier if they understand that they're just acting out of the conditioning. It is what it is, but it's time for us to do things differently and open up a whole new world to people that we have excluded literally for hundreds of years, who have knowledge, wisdom, education. That these folks have done it all to try to improve their lives and to have a better life for themselves. And so the least we can do is begin to open doors in organizations that have never been opened before, because it enhances the organization itself. So yeah, so thank you for that. All right, who else has something they want to add? If you have your hand up on another screen, I can't see you. Just open up your mic and start talking.
Hi, Milagros. It's Kate.
Hi, Kate. How are you?
I'm doing really well. There's so many things that are coming up for me. I was writing down, but one of the things that my husband and I have always loved Key and Peele. And we watched something really serious last night. He goes, I need some Key and Peele. So we found old reruns of their show. And we just couldn't stop watching it. And I kept saying, oh my God, I'm seeing this again. And some of the sketches I remembered. And it was like, oh my God, this is what this was about. Their comedy, and sometimes comedy can reach us where we need to be reached. I mean, Peele's Get Out. Oh my God. I remember literally shaking, and it wasn't from the horror in that film, but it was the awakening that was going on. So brilliant. I really love Jordan Peele, but the things that they were that they were sharing with humor, but with that bite comedically, but the pain and the realness and the authenticity of what they were saying, just enough to get by Hollywood's standards, right? But it's sort of like the way Rod Serling would put all this stuff in his Twilight Zones. You do it in a way that seeps into the consciousness. And I was able to see that because of the work I've been doing with you for 2.5 years. It's like everything, it was like seeing it all anew and beginning to understand it from a very different perspective. And the laughter was with tears in a deeper sense. And Chris and I talked about it afterwards. And I want to share one thing. You've worked with my husband in his organization. Y'all, he works with it. My husband works with an organization that is doing deep environmental repair in a town called Princeville in North Carolina, which is the first African-American city in the country. And it's, of course, on a floodplain. It was settled after with freed slaves. And they've had a lot of economic and environmental impact because of all the flooding from the hurricanes over years and years, but they're doing work to repair this. And my husband was going to an environmental conference in New Orleans. And there was a group of people from Princeville, the mayor, that were going to present. And he came to me and he said, you know, one of the women that's a singer at her church wants to sing a song at this conference. And I'm just not sure it's appropriate. And I said to him, if it's coming from her creativity and her soul that she wants to do this in that, in that presentation, I think you should let her. And I didn't know, I wouldn't have said that. I wouldn't have felt like I had the right to tell him, because that's not my world. That whole world is very different from me. Right? I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't go to those conferences. And 3 days later, he sent me a video of the woman singing at this, very, talk about tech world, the environmental world too, you know what I mean? And she was singing, and he filmed the people watching her, and he filmed her. It was so powerful because the impact of her coming from her soul and expressing her gratitude and expressing how she felt about what was being done in the repair of this town. It was all said in that song, right? And so the fact that I had the guts to tell him that, why not? And that he sent me that. So these little things that we can do, because we're coming from love, we can speak out and say these things. And I highly recommend, going back and watching Richard Pryor, we did that a couple of years ago. And it's like, oh my God, the brilliance behind that these comedians are sharing this stuff. It's sometimes more palatable, just like sometimes easier to watch the news with Trevor Noah or Stephen Colbert to know what's going on, but it's a way in. And that's all I want to say, but I'm just so grateful. My whole consciousness, my whole awareness, my whole behavior, my choices in life have been impacted by you, Milagros, and the racial healing that I've had continual, that will be continued learning the rest of my life. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Kate. Thank you for that. Yeah, that's another group that really could benefit from this work is the environmental folks. There's a lot of anger in that group. You can't blame people, there's not always a lot of context, that just axiology alone can help people break that stuff down in really understand what and why, because I think that we lose, like going back, and you all know I can't get through anything without talking about the doctrine, but the doctrine is about the humans, the waterways, and the land, right? And so once human beings were objectified and the land became objectified and the water became objectified. It became a one-way relationship of what this can do for me, and there was no return. And they had to do with ownership, okay? So when you have stewardship over the land, the waterways, and the people, you interact with them differently than when you own them. Do you hear what I'm saying? Okay, there is a different relationship between stewardship and ownership. In ownership, what happens is that everything becomes objectified. So when the land became objectified, it was a one-way street of what you can do for me kind of thing without any return. So it doesn't matter how many trees we cut down and put, you know, because, and we don't even have to plant any more trees. So now we're becoming conscious and we're realizing, oh, we can't do that. There has to be a reciprocal relationship here. It can't just be, you know, a one-way interaction. It really needs to be a two-way. But if you understand the doctrine, you understand the environmental mess we are in today, because it has to do with the objectification of the land, the waterways, and the people. Does that make sense? So, you know, I would love to have more people from the environmental movement come to these workshops, because again, it's that whole thing of understanding that, you know, we need to relate to each other, the land and the waterways differently. You know, we cannot continue this one-way relationship that we've had, you know, for over hundreds of years. It's not serving any of us. It's not serving any of us. So becoming conscious of that is really important. So think of your friends who are in the environmental movement, think of your friends who are in tech, think of your friends and colleagues who work in other organizations, and invite them to the Lunch and Learn. It would be lovely to have more organizations join our little race healer family as much as we can. Any other questions or comments? You know, I can't thank you guys enough. I'm so grateful. It's been an amazing year. I've learned so much, and continue the learning. I'm working on another book, and which I hope to have out maybe by the end of next year, but I'm not sure about that. But you guys, I am so grateful to you for showing up, for caring about this subject, for looking to make a difference in your organizations. I can't thank you enough for that. This is a place where we gather once a month, unless the first Monday of the month, unless there's a holiday. And we connect with each other to learn more and more, and to peel away more and more of those layers, so we can bring our whole selves to everything that we do. I am so grateful to you. I love you. Please open up your microphones so that you can say goodbye. And I'll see you next month. Next month, we're going to work on race and housing. So I'm really excited about that, because that's a huge, huge topic. And we can't say enough about it. Hey, Amanda, you joined us. So grateful for all of you. I love you. Say goodbye to everybody. Wish everyone a happy new year, because I won't see you again until the beginning of the new year. So
Goodbye.
Happy New Year.
I love you. Lots of
Everyone.
love to you.
Happy New
Enjoy
Year.
your time with
Love
your
you
friends
all.
and families for
Love
the
you all.
holidays.
Thank
I'm a
you.
lot, Bruce.
Lots of love.
Thank you, everyone, for your shares. They were
Thank you,
beautiful
everyone.
and informative.
Thanks. I'm so glad you joined us, Anna. Love
Me
you.
too.
Safe trip. See you
I figured
soon.
it out when I was doing my yin yoga this morning. Thank you.
Bye. Bye, Kevin. Have a great holiday.
Happy holidays to you as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.